A billionaire believed money could solve anything, until his infant daughter started screaming non-stop for hours mid-flight. The crew was helpless, passengers were furious, and just as the chaos reached its peak, a black teen from economy class stood up and asked, "May I help?" What happened next didn't just calm the baby. It revealed a truth that left the billionaire speechless. Tell me where you're watching from, and don't forget to subscribe to see tomorrow's surprise. The entire first-class cabin of Flight 722 held its collective breath. 200 passengers, flight attendants frozen mid-step, even the businessman who'd been complaining loudly for the past 90 minutes, everyone stared in absolute disbelief at what was happening in Seat 2A. Billionaire Daniel Holloway's 7-month-old daughter Grace, who had been screaming at lung capacity for nearly 2 hours, whose cries had driven passengers to the edge of madness, whose distress had defeated every solution Daniel could devise, had gone completely, utterly, impossibly silent. The person who had accomplished this miracle wasn't a pediatric specialist, wasn't an expensive nanny, wasn't anyone Daniel could have predicted. She was a 16-year-old black girl from East Austin, with worn but carefully mended clothes and a backpack covered in mathematics competition patches, who had been watching his desperate struggle with increasing concern before finally walking up from economy class and quietly asking, "May I try to help?" Daniel stared at this stranger now cradling his peacefully sleeping daughter, his exhausted mind struggling to process what had just happened. He noticed the intelligence burning in her dark eyes, the gentle confidence in her worn hands, the quiet dignity in her bearing despite her obvious youth and modest circumstances. "Who are you?" Daniel whispered, his voice hoarse from nearly 2 hours of trying desperately to console Grace himself. The girl smiled gently, her attention focused on maintaining the specific hold that kept Grace calm. "My name is Alicia Martinez. I'm 16 years old from East Austin, and I'm on my way to London to compete in the International Mathematics Competition Championship." About a few hours before silence, Daniel Holloway had always prided himself on his ability to solve any problem through careful analysis, strategic thinking, and sheer determination. That confidence had built an $8 billion technology empire from nothing but a college degree and relentless ambition. But for the past 20 minutes, as his 7-month-old daughter Grace screamed with an intensity that seemed to fill the entire airplane cabin, Daniel's celebrated problem-solving abilities had proven utterly, humiliatingly useless. "Mr. Holloway, perhaps you could try the bottle again," suggested the flight attendant, her professional smile strained at the edges, her voice carrying the barest hint of desperation masked as helpfulness. Daniel wanted to snap that he'd tried the bottle 4 times already, that Grace had violently rejected it each time, that he'd tried literally everything he could think of and nothing worked. But he was too exhausted and too aware of the hostile stares from other first-class passengers to waste energy on frustration. In Seat 1A, oil magnate George Patterson had given up any pretense of politeness. He'd removed his noise-canceling headphones, apparently they were useless against Grace's screaming, and was glaring at Daniel with undisguised hostility. "This is precisely why children shouldn't be permitted in first class," Patterson announced to his wife, though his voice carried clearly to Daniel and half the cabin. "Some people have absolutely no consideration for others who've paid good money for a peaceful flight." Daniel felt his face burning with a mixture of humiliation and anger, but Grace's increasingly desperate cries overwhelmed every other emotion. This wasn't just typical infant fussiness that other passengers should tolerate with understanding. Something was genuinely wrong with his daughter, and he had absolutely no idea how to help her. 4 days ago, everything had been carefully planned. Daniel was scheduled for 5 crucial days in London board meetings with European partners that could determine Holloway Technologies' international expansion, negotiations worth hundreds of millions of dollars, presentations that represented months of careful preparation. Then 72 hours before his scheduled departure, his wife Jennifer had been rushed to Methodist Dallas Medical Center with acute appendicitis requiring emergency surgery. The operation went well, but her recovery would take at least 10 days of careful rest. "I can reschedule the London trip," Daniel had told Jennifer as she lay in the hospital bed, still groggy from anesthesia but characteristically determined. "Absolutely not," Jennifer had insisted, her voice weak but firm. "This European expansion is too important. You've been working toward this for 18 months. Take Grace with you. Hire the best nanny money can buy. You'll manage." Daniel had immediately contacted the most exclusive childcare agency in Dallas. They'd sent him their top professional, a British nanny named Margot Sheffield with impeccable credentials, 23 years of experience with wealthy families, and references that read like a resume for running a small country. Her rate was $375 per hour, and Daniel had hired her without hesitation, relieved that money could solve this particular problem. Then 8 hours before their scheduled flight, Margot had called from an emergency room, violently ill with what doctors suspected was severe food poisoning from contaminated oysters at an upscale restaurant. She was in no condition to travel, possibly for days. The agency had no qualified backup available on such short notice. Every other top-tier nanny in their system was already committed to other wealthy families. Daniel faced an impossible choice: cancel the London trip and potentially destroy 18 months of careful negotiation, or bring Grace alone and somehow manage. His arrogance had made the decision seem obvious. He was Daniel Holloway, the brilliant CEO who'd built an empire through intelligence and determination. Surely he could manage caring for one infant for 5 days. How difficult could it possibly be? That confident assumption now seemed laughably, painfully naive. Grace had been fussy but manageable during boarding and the first 15 minutes of flight. Daniel had actually felt a surge of relief, thinking perhaps this would work out fine after all. Then as the plane leveled off at cruising altitude, Grace had started crying. Not the typical fussy sounds Daniel had heard before when he occasionally helped Jennifer with evening routine, but genuine distressed screaming that suggested real pain or discomfort. Daniel tried everything he could think of. He offered the carefully prepared bottle. Grace rejected it violently, pushing it away with surprising force for such a small baby. He checked her diaper in the cramped airplane bathroom, a claustrophobic experience that left him sweating and flustered, only to discover she was perfectly clean. He tried walking the aisles, bouncing her gently the way he'd seen Jennifer do countless times. Grace's screaming only intensified. He tried different holding positions, played white noise from his phone, attempted every technique the increasingly concerned flight attendants suggested. Nothing worked. If anything, Grace seemed to be getting more distressed with each passing minute. 45 minutes into the flight, Daniel had moved from confident problem solver to genuinely worried father. Grace's cries had taken on a quality that suggested serious discomfort, not just typical infant fussiness. Her little face was bright red, her tiny body rigid with tension, her screams hoarse but unrelenting. "Sir, perhaps she's overtired," suggested another flight attendant, a young woman who looked sympathetic but helpless. Sometimes babies just need to cry it out, but Daniel could see this wasn't normal crying. Something was wrong, and his complete inability to figure out what or how to help made him feel more helpless than he'd felt since childhood poverty. 60 minutes now. Other first-class passengers had abandoned any pretense of working or relaxing. A woman in seat 3C kept sighing dramatically and checking her watch. A businessman across the aisle had complained twice to flight attendants about the disruption. Even passengers in the economy section several rows back could undoubtedly hear Grace's relentless screaming. Daniel stood in the galley area, rocking Grace uselessly, fighting back his own tears of frustration and fear. His expensive suit was soaked with sweat. His carefully planned work time had disintegrated completely. And worst of all, he was watching his daughter suffer and felt completely utterly powerless to help her. What kind of father was he? What kind of man couldn't figure out how to comfort his own child? 75 minutes. Grace's voice had gone hoarse, but she continued making distressed sounds that broke Daniel's heart. He tried everything again: bottle, diaper check, walking, bouncing, singing, playing music, speaking soothingly, sitting quietly, standing, pacing. Nothing made any difference. That's when Daniel became aware of someone watching them with unusual intensity. 3 rows back in the economy section, partially visible through the dividing curtain, a young black girl, maybe 16 or 17 years old, had been leaning forward in her seat for the past 10 minutes. Her dark eyes fixed on Grace with an expression Daniel couldn't quite interpret. Not annoyance or impatience like the other passengers. Something different: recognition maybe, understanding, concern. The girl wore simple clothes, worn jeans and a faded sweatshirt that had seen better days. Her backpack, visible in the seat beside her, was covered with patches from various academic competitions. Daniel's exhausted mind registered these details automatically, filing them away even as Grace's renewed screaming demanded his attention. The girl was clearly studying Grace's crying pattern, watching Daniel's failed attempts to soothe her, analyzing the situation with focused intensity that seemed unusual for a teenager on an airplane. Then Daniel tried another position change, and Grace's screaming reached a new pitch of distress, and he forgot about the watching girl as genuine panic truly set in. 90 minutes, an hour and a half of continuous crying. Grace's little voice was completely hoarse now, but she continued making heartbreaking sounds of distress. Daniel felt tears burning behind his own eyes. He had 5 days of crucial meetings in London. He couldn't bring a screaming baby into boardrooms full of sophisticated European investors. His entire expansion deal could collapse. But more fundamentally, more painfully, he was watching his daughter suffer and had absolutely no idea how to help her. Mr. Holloway, the lead flight attendant, appeared beside him, her expression sympathetic but firm. Sir, I know this is incredibly difficult, but we're receiving multiple complaints from passengers throughout first class and beyond. Is there anything at all we can do to help? I don't know what to do, Daniel heard himself say, his voice breaking with exhaustion and desperation. I've tried everything I can think of, everything. I don't know what she needs, I don't know how to help her. The admission spoken aloud to a stranger felt like complete defeat. Daniel Holloway, the brilliant CEO, the self-made billionaire, reduced to helpless confusion by a 7-month-old baby. The attendant looked genuinely sympathetic. Sometimes babies just cry, sir. It's not necessarily your fault. Then whose fault is it? Daniel asked bitterly. I'm her father. I should be able to figure this out. It was at that precise moment of absolute desperation that the young black girl from economy class stood up with visible decision and determination. Daniel watched through his exhausted haze as she moved forward through the cabin, drawing curious and some disapproving stares from other passengers. She was younger than he'd initially thought, definitely still in high school, with her natural hair pulled back in a practical ponytail and an expression of earnest determination on her face. The flight attendant near the divider between cabins moved to intercept her, clearly intending to redirect this economy passenger back to her section. But the girl spoke before she could be dismissed. Excuse me, ma'am, the girl said respectfully but firmly, the baby in first class. I think I might be able to help. I recognize what's wrong. The attendant looked skeptical, her gaze moving from the girl's worn clothes to her obvious youth. Are you sure? Yes, ma'am, the girl replied, maintaining her calm dignity despite the clear skepticism. I have extensive experience with colicky babies, and I've been listening to that baby's crying pattern for the past hour. I recognize the specific type of distress. There are techniques that can help when traditional methods fail. Something about her quiet confidence, the clinical precision of her language, caught the attendant's attention. Let me ask the father if he's interested in assistance. But Daniel had already heard the conversation and appeared in the aisle, still holding the screaming Grace, looking completely desperate and willing to try literally anything. I heard someone say they can help, Daniel said, his voice breaking. The girl met his eyes directly, unflinching despite the obvious class difference. Sir, my name is Alicia Martinez. I know I'm young, but I have a baby sister who had colic so severe she cried 8 hours a day for months. I learned specific techniques that work when nothing else does. I believe I can help your daughter. Every passenger in first class was watching now. Daniel realized he had nothing left to lose. Please, he said simply, extending Grace toward Alicia. What happened next would replay in Daniel's mind forever. The instant Alicia's hands made contact with Grace, something shifted. She positioned the baby in a way Daniel had never seen, supporting her head while applying rhythmic pressure along her spine with practiced precision. Babies with severe colic often have trapped gas causing digestive distress, Alicia explained quietly as she worked. Combined with overstimulation from too much movement, they need calm, steady pressure in specific positions to release the gas and soothe their nervous system. Grace's screaming reduced to whimpering within 30 seconds, then to soft hiccups, then to silence. Complete, absolute, miraculous silence. Alicia began humming a soft melody Daniel had never heard while maintaining the gentle spinal massage. Grace's eyes, which had been squeezed shut in distress for 2 hours, slowly opened and focused on Alicia's face with sudden calm. For the first time in 2 hours, Grace looked peaceful. How? Daniel whispered, staring at this remarkable teenager. My baby sister Rosa had colic so severe we thought something was seriously wrong. Alicia explained softly, continuing her work. We couldn't afford specialists, so I spent months researching every remedy, learning infant massage, studying digestive issues. Eventually I figured out what actually worked. As Grace's breathing deepened toward sleep, Daniel saw the mathematics competition patches on Alicia's backpack more clearly now. Texas State Mathematics Championship, first place. National Mathematics Olympiad, Gold medal. You're traveling to London for a mathematics competition, Daniel said quietly, not wanting to wake Grace. Yes sir, the International Mathematics Competition Championship. The top finishers get full scholarships to universities like MIT. Daniel gestured to the empty first-class seat beside him. Please, sit down. I need to understand what just happened. As Alicia settled carefully into the seat, still holding the now sleeping Grace, Daniel saw other passengers' reactions shifting from skepticism to amazed respect. George Patterson was actually nodding approvingly. Where are you from? Daniel asked. East Austin. My family lives in an apartment complex near 7th Street. Daniel knew that area, working-class neighborhood, predominantly black and Hispanic, economically challenged. Tell me about this mathematics competition, Daniel said, genuinely curious now. Alicia's eyes lit up as she explained, regional rounds, state championships, national qualifiers, each level progressively harder, filtering thousands down to a few dozen international competitors. I won Austin Regional, then Texas State, then placed second in nationals, Alicia recounted. The international competition has students from 60 countries, all the top mathematical talent globally. What's your specialty? Daniel asked. Number theory and combinatorics primarily, but I focus on practical applications, using mathematics to solve real-world problems. How is your trip being funded? Alicia's expression became more serious. My community raised money. Local businesses, our church, neighbors who can barely afford their own bills, they all contributed because they believe in my potential. The weight of that statement settled over Daniel. This girl was carrying her community's hopes and investment. What happens if you win? Full scholarship to MIT. With living expenses and research funding, it would mean I could study at the highest level and eventually come back to create educational programs for other kids like me. Daniel found himself making a decision. Alicia, I have a proposition. I'm in London for 5 days of crucial business meetings. As you've witnessed, I'm completely unprepared to care for Grace. I'd like to hire you as her caregiver during my trip. $500 per day. Hotel room adjoining mine, transportation to and from your competition. The competition comes first. I'd only need help during my meetings. Alicia's eyes widened. $500 per day. That's more than my mama makes in a week. It's what a professional nanny costs in London. And you've proven you're more skilled than any professional I could hire. Alicia was quiet, clearly processing implications. Mr. Holloway, I'm honored, but this competition represents my entire future. I can't let anything compromise my preparation. I understand completely, competition takes absolute priority. But I should mention one more thing. Daniel paused. My company has a foundation that supports exceptionally gifted students from underserved communities. Regardless of competition results, I'd like to discuss supporting your educational goals. As the plane began its descent toward London, Alicia looked at Grace sleeping peacefully in her arms, then at Daniel's sincere expression. I accept your offer, she said quietly. I'll help with Grace, as long as the competition comes first. Daniel felt relief and excitement. He'd built his career recognizing exceptional talent, and every instinct said Alicia Martinez was someone truly special. The sleek black Range Rover waiting outside Heathrow was unlike anything Alicia had ever experienced. As the uniformed driver opened the door and she slid into the butter-soft leather seats, she consciously kept her face neutral, unwilling to reveal how overwhelmed she felt. The interior resembled a private office more than a vehicle. Polished wood trim, glowing screens, a refrigerator built into the console, perfect temperature control. Through the tinted windows, London unfolded in cinematic detail. Red double-deckers, black cabs, centuries-old buildings she had only seen in textbooks. Grace slept soundly between them, the position Alicia had shown Daniel keeping her comfortable. Every few minutes he glanced at his daughter with a mix of relief, gratitude, and lingering fear that the crying might return. As they drove through the city, Daniel began outlining the week's logistics with the precision of a corporate strategist. The International Mathematics Competition starts tomorrow with registration at 8 and the opening ceremony at 10, he said, glancing at his calendar. Then we review competition rules and meet other participants. Alicia added, perfect. My first meeting isn't until 2, so I can watch Grace in the morning. I'll need your help from 2 until 7, 5 hours of back-to-back negotiations. That leaves your morning and evening free for preparation. That works, Alicia said, touched that he was structuring his schedule around hers. He continued, Day 2 is the first round, individual problem solving, 4 hours, no calculators, total silence. Day 3, team collaboration in the morning, then individual presentations. That's the round that determines final rankings. Then I'll arrange hotel childcare on those days, so you can focus completely, Daniel said. They passed Buckingham Palace, sunlight glinting off the gates, and Alicia studied Daniel more closely. He wore an impeccable suit, sleeves rolled up, tie loosened from caring for Grace. His watch alone could cover her family's rent for a year, yet his manner carried no arrogance, just exhaustion and quiet empathy. "Can I ask something personal?" she ventured. "Of course. You said your background was like mine. What did you mean?" Daniel's expression softened. "I grew up in Odessa, Texas. My father worked in the oil fields. My mother cleaned offices all night. We lived in a trailer park, where violence was normal. I was good at math and science, but my high school had no advanced courses. My counselor told me college wasn't realistic, that I should be practical." "What changed?" "One teacher," Daniel said. "Mrs. Patterson, junior year chemistry. She saw I was bored, started giving me college-level work, tutored me after school, made me take the SAT, helped with scholarships, and refused to let me believe I was limited by where I came from." He smiled faintly. "She told me, Daniel, you earned your place. Don't apologize for belonging somewhere you've proven you deserve to be." Alicia nodded, recognizing the same lifeline she'd been given by teachers back home. "Did you fit in at Rice?" "Not at all. I worked 3 jobs while classmates studied abroad. I wore thrift store suits to recruiting fairs and graduated top of my class. 6 months later, I started Holloway Technologies with 2 credit cards and nothing to lose." He met her eyes. "Now I want to be for you what she was for me, someone who believes in your potential and opens doors that seem locked." "Why?" Alicia asked softly. "You barely know me." "Because I recognize what you are. Intelligence with empathy, ability forged through adversity. That's rare and worth investing in, not as charity but as purpose." When they reached the Langham, Alicia's breath caught. The marble lobby gleamed beneath chandeliers, every surface polished to perfection. Staff moved with practiced grace, greeting Daniel by name. "Your suite is prepared, sir," the manager said. "The adjoining room is ready as well, with all the baby amenities requested." The elevator rose to the top floor and opened directly into a private foyer. The suite beyond looked like another world, floor-to-ceiling windows with sweeping views, a kitchen of brushed steel, a dining room fit for diplomats. Alicia followed Daniel inside, overwhelmed. 24 hours earlier she had been in her family's cramped apartment, worried about affording meals in London. Now she stood inside a space larger than her entire home. "Your room's through there," Daniel said, laying Grace in a crib prepared by the hotel. "Private bath, internet, 24-hour room service." Alicia stepped into her room and froze. The bed could have held her whole family. The marble bathroom gleamed like a jewel box. Returning to the suite, she looked at Daniel seriously. "This is incredible. But I have to ask, why are you really doing this? What do you want from me?" Daniel set down Grace's bottle and faced her calmly. "That's a fair question. Let me be completely honest. First, I truly need help. I can't manage these meetings with a baby. You've already proven you can handle Grace when I can't. That alone is worth paying well. Second, and more important, when I was your age, someone invested in me. Mrs. Patterson changed my life. I've reached a point where I'm asking what success is for. More houses, more money, or helping others the way she helped me. When I met you, I saw that same mix of brilliance and compassion that's far rarer than pure intellect. So you see me as a good investment?" Alicia asked. "I see you as someone who deserves support," Daniel said simply. "The foundation scholarship isn't conditional. Whether or not you ever work for me, you'll have what you need to achieve your potential." He hesitated, then added, "Selfishly, I hope you'll eventually collaborate with us, applying math and AI to real-world problems. But that's your choice, years from now." Alicia studied him, weighing his sincerity. "My mama's going to be suspicious," she admitted. "She'll think I'm naive. Honestly, part of me wonders too." "She should be cautious," Daniel said seriously. "After the competition, let's set up a video call with her and my wife Jennifer. She can ask anything she wants." "That's fair," Alicia said, relaxing slightly. Grace stirred and opened her eyes, calm this time. Daniel handed her the bottle, visibly relieved when she drank without fuss. "See that," he said, smiling. "You've changed my week entirely." "Colic looks terrifying," Alicia said, checking the baby. "But once you release the pressure, they settle. My sister Rosa was the same way." Daniel nodded, studying her with quiet admiration. She moved through this luxury setting as if she belonged, not pretending or shrinking. Maybe, Alicia thought, maybe this was genuine, someone who wanted to help because he'd once been helped himself. Tell me about your mathematics work, Daniel said, patting Grace's back with growing confidence. Alicia's face lit up. I'm drawn to using mathematics to model inequality, especially in education and healthcare. There are measurable patterns in how resources flow through cities. I've been building a model of Texas school funding to show how property tax systems lock poor neighborhoods into cycles of underinvestment. It's all optimization and network theory, but with human consequences. Daniel listened, impressed. That's exactly the kind of work the Holloway Foundation supports, applied intelligence for social impact. Have you published it? Not yet, Alicia said. Mrs. Rodriguez is helping me format a paper, but time's been scarce. School, siblings, competition prep. Once I reach MIT, I'll finally have resources to pursue it properly. What if you could start sooner? Daniel asked. We could connect you with mentors at UT Austin before you graduate. Alicia smiled but shook her head slightly. That sounds amazing, but first I have to survive this competition. You already have, Daniel said. And that brings me to something important. What I said on the plane, I meant it. Regardless of your results, the foundation will fund your education. You've proven your ability simply by being here. You don't need to win to deserve opportunity. Alicia felt tears prick her eyes. You can't imagine what that means. My entire community helped send me here. I've been terrified of failing them. I understand, Daniel said quietly. When I first arrived at Rice, I felt the same. But real supporters aren't measuring your worth by trophies. They're proud that you reached this level, that you're representing them. And from my end, your future doesn't depend on the judges' scores. You're already one of the most capable students I've ever met. His voice softened. So compete with freedom, not fear. Do your best because you love the work, not because failure feels fatal. Alicia wiped her eyes. You've just taken a mountain off my shoulders. I know, Daniel said gently. Someone once did the same for me. And it changed everything. Grace had drifted back to sleep, and Daniel laid her gently in the crib. The room fell into peaceful quiet. Now, he said, smiling, use tonight to rest and prepare. Tomorrow is yours. What about you? I'll manage. You've already done more than you know. Alone in her room, Alicia sat at the desk facing London's skyline. The city lights shimmered through the glass, and her reflection looked both the same and completely new. Only a day earlier she'd been in East Austin, worried about plane fares, food costs, and whether she belonged among the world's prodigies. Now she had a private suite in one of London's grandest hotels, financial security promised, and something she had not felt in years, certainty that her potential was real. She opened her textbook, reviewing competition material, but her thoughts kept returning to Daniel's story. A boy from a trailer park, a teacher who believed, a man who remembered what it felt like to be overlooked. Maybe wealth didn't always erase compassion. Maybe this connection wasn't coincidence, but continuation, a chain of people lifting others as they had been lifted. She glanced once toward the quiet crib in the adjoining room. The crying that had brought them together had stopped hours ago, yet its echo lingered, a single act of compassion that had altered 2 lives, and perhaps, countless others still to come. Alicia smiled faintly, whispered a prayer of thanks, and returned to her equations. For the first time in months the symbols and numbers felt light, like music rather than battle. Tomorrow she would walk into the Royal Institution, not as a charity case or an outsider, but as someone who belonged, because she had earned her place and because finally she believed it. Morning arrived under London's familiar grey skies, the light filtered and soft. Alicia woke more rested than she had in weeks. For a brief moment she forgot where she was, the vast hotel bed, the quiet luxury, and then memory flooded back. London, the competition, Daniel, Grace, the scholarship promise that had lifted the weight of years of struggle. She showered dressed in the outfit her mother had helped her choose, black trousers and a crisp white blouse, professional but simple, and stepped into the suite's dining area, where Daniel was already feeding Grace breakfast. Good morning, he greeted warmly. There's a full breakfast spread. I ordered everything. I wasn't sure what you'd want. The serving cart overflowed with more food than her family usually saw in a week. Fruit, pastries, eggs, bacon, cereals, yogurt, tea, coffee. Alicia filled her plate modestly, uncomfortable amid such abundance. Nervous? Daniel asked. Terrified, Alicia admitted. It's just introductions, but sitting among hundreds of the world's best students who've had every advantage, it's intimidating. Daniel smiled. Remember what I told you, you belong there. You earned this, your path is different, but difference is strength. It gives you perspectives they'll never have. Grace reached toward Alicia, laughing. Alicia took the baby, smiling as Grace burrowed into her arms. She remembers that I helped her when she was hurting, she said. After breakfast, Daniel insisted on sending her in the hotel car. As they stopped before the Royal Institution in Mayfair, where Faraday and Maxwell had once lectured, Alicia's pulse quickened. You've got this, Daniel said softly. Show them what East Austin produces. The grand auditorium shimmered with energy. Dozens of languages interwove: English, Mandarin, Korean, Spanish, French, Arabic. Students from 60 countries, the best of their generation, gathered under one roof. Alicia noticed immediately how privilege manifested: designer clothes, latest laptops, quiet confidence. Yet she also spotted a handful like herself, students with careful posture, modest clothes, eyes full of awe and determination. Excuse me, are you Alicia Martinez from Texas? A tall British boy extended his hand. James Wellington. I saw your results from the U.S. qualifiers. Your number theory proofs were exceptional. Thank you, Alicia replied, startled and pleased. Your geometric proof in the European round was brilliant. I studied it while preparing. James grinned. Most Americans don't follow the European circuit. I study everything I can, she said. It's how I learn, watching how others think, finding elegance in different approaches. They spoke easily, comparing methods and favorite problems. The differences in background fell away as they bonded through shared fascination with patterns and proof. The conversation faded as the lights dimmed. Dr. Margaret Thompson, the competition director, stepped onto the stage. Tall, composed, in her 60s, she radiated the calm authority of someone who had spent her life at the pinnacle of mathematics. Welcome to the 47th International Mathematics Competition, she began. You represent the future of the discipline. Over the next 3 days, you will face challenges designed not to test memory but creativity, problems with no obvious solutions. Her voice filled the hall, steady and powerful. Mathematics at this level is not formulas, it is persistence, pattern recognition, insight. It begins where certainty ends. You will fail, grow frustrated, and doubt yourselves. That discomfort is the crucible where discovery begins. Alicia leaned forward, absorbing every word. But remember, Dr. Thompson concluded, her tone softening, earning your place here already marks you among the top 100th of 1% of mathematical talent in the world. Regardless of ranking, you are extraordinary. Trust your instincts, respect one another, and meet the unknown with curiosity. After the ceremony, the competitors mingled. Alicia joined a group conversation, quickly realizing how invisible social hierarchies reproduced themselves here. A girl from a Manhattan prep school asked where she studied. East Austin High, Alicia replied. The girl blinked. I don't think I've heard of that one. I didn't realize Texas public schools produced competitors for this level. The tone was sweet but condescending. Alicia had heard it all her life. She smiled politely. Public schools produce talent everywhere. We just don't always have the resources to advertise it. The girl flushed and turned away. Alicia felt a flash of satisfaction, mixed with renewed determination. She was done apologizing for her origins. James reappeared, having witnessed the exchange. Ignore them, he said. They've had tutors since they could walk. You got here on your own. That's far more impressive. Thank you, she said quietly. Besides, he added with a grin, students who've been spoon-fed theory often panic when faced with something truly original. People like you, who've had to figure things out, usually solve the impossible. By late afternoon, Alicia was back at the hotel. Daniel was ending a video call, Grace playing on the floor surrounded by plush animals. He turned off his screen the moment he saw her. How was it? Inspiring, she said, sinking onto the sofa. Also overwhelming. Everyone there seems to have had specialized tutors since childhood. I've been self-taught with library books and online lectures. Sometimes it feels like I'm faking it. Daniel regarded her for a long moment. Can I tell you something about my first pitch to investors? She nodded. I was 23, he began, presenting to Silicon Valley giants, people who'd funded Google, Facebook, all of them. My competitors had degrees from Stanford and MIT. I sat in the parking garage for 45 minutes, sweating, convinced I didn't belong. I nearly drove back to Texas. Alicia looked up. What changed? I called my mother, Daniel said, smiling faintly, told her I was too scared to go in. She said, Daniel, who decided you don't belong? Them or you? Don't do their job for them. So I went in, terrified, and I got the funding, not because I was the most polished, but because my background let me see problems differently. My so-called disadvantage was my strength. He leaned forward. That's your story too. You've solved problems with no safety net, no tutor, no cushion. That's real intelligence. Don't mistake scarcity for inferiority. Her shoulders relaxed. The words sank deep. I keep forgetting that my background can be an advantage. It is, he said. Then standing, now I have a meeting until 7. Think you can handle Grace for the afternoon? Alicia smiled, gladly. The next 5 hours became unexpectedly joyful. Grace's laughter filled the suite, as Alicia stacked colored blocks into patterns, watching the baby's delighted attempts to imitate her. 2 red, 4 blue, 6 yellow, Alicia said softly, half amused when Grace reached for green blocks, as if continuing the sequence. You're already thinking in patterns, Alicia whispered, kissing her forehead. You're going to be amazing. The baby giggled, and for a moment Alicia saw her little sister Rosa's face in Grace's, bright, curious, full of potential. She wondered what Rosa was doing back in Austin, whether her homework was finished, whether she still talked about when Alicia wins the World Math Championship. When Daniel returned that evening, Alicia and Grace were reading together, the child's head resting sleepily against her shoulder. He smiled, quietly moved by the sight, before lifting Grace into his arms for bedtime. After Grace was asleep, Daniel and Alicia shared dinner from room service, seared salmon, roasted vegetables, elegant desserts. To Alicia, it felt impossibly luxurious. Tell me about your family, Daniel said. Alicia hesitated, then began. My mother is the hardest working person I know. She came to Texas at 17, pregnant with me, and she's been working ever since, cleaning houses, working in hospitals, doing whatever she had to. She's a nursing assistant now, 12-hour shifts, on her feet all day. Daniel listened silently. She doesn't complain. Alicia continued. She just works. Everything I know about persistence comes from her. And your grandmother? Alicia smiled. Abuela is my heart. She taught me Spanish, and gave me my first math book when I was 7. She cleaned houses for rich families for 40 years, and would tell me about the libraries she dusted, the paintings, the pianos. She used to say, Misha, one day you'll live in a house like this, not because you're cleaning it, but because you earned it with your mind. She made me believe I could. Daniel nodded slowly. She sounds extraordinary. She is, Alicia said, her voice quiet, but fierce. She sacrificed everything so my mother could have a better life, and Mama sacrificed for me. I carry both of them with me everywhere. I can't fail them. Daniel saw the weight of expectation in her eyes. Alicia, listen to me. You've already succeeded. You made it to an international competition against all odds. You've proven yourself a dozen times over. Win or lose, you haven't let anyone down. But the scholarship will happen no matter what, he interrupted gently. The Holloway Foundation's support doesn't depend on results. You've earned it already. This competition won't define your worth. Tears shimmered in her eyes. Why are you doing this? We barely know each other. Daniel was quiet for a long moment. Because someone once did it for me. Because talent is universal, but opportunity isn't. Because I see something in you beyond numbers, character, perspective, integrity. And honestly, because I believe you'll change lives, and I want to help you do it. He leaned forward, his voice low and steady. This isn't charity, it's investment in a future you're going to build. Alicia swallowed hard. I won't waste it. You couldn't if you tried, Daniel said with a faint smile. Now get some sleep. Tomorrow you'll need every bit of focus you have. Before bed, Alicia called her family in Austin. Her mother appeared on the screen in her scrubs, the hospital lights harsh behind her. Misha, how was the ceremony? Incredible, Alicia said, and Mr. Holloway's been amazing. You wouldn't believe this hotel. Her mother frowned. You're being careful, yes. Nothing inappropriate, Mama. No, Alicia said quickly. It's completely professional. He needs help with Grace while he works, and his scholarship offer is real. I saw the paperwork. Her mother's eyes softened, though worry lingered. Just remember, rich men don't give away money for nothing. He's genuine, Alicia said. He came from nothing too. He wants to help me because someone once helped him. He believes I'll use what I learned to help communities like ours. Her mother nodded slowly. Then make sure you do. Work hard. Remember who you represent. I will. After they said goodnight, Alicia set her phone down and stared at the ornate ceiling above her. The velvet quiet of the suite felt unreal. 2 days ago, she'd been worrying about plane fare. Now she was surrounded by luxury, her education funded, her potential recognized. But beneath gratitude, pulsed the same fierce resolve. She would justify this faith. Tomorrow the real competition began. She closed her eyes, hearing again the echo of Grace's crying that had begun it all. That small act of compassion, reaching out to soothe a stranger's child, had altered the trajectory of everything. The sound had stopped long ago, yet its consequences were still unfolding, widening outward, like the ripples of an equation she had only begun to solve. The first morning of competition began, before dawn, with Alicia's alarm breaking the quiet at 6 o'clock. She had slept restlessly, her dreams tangled with equations that refused to resolve and judges who frowned at her work. Yet as she showered and dressed in the comfortable clothes she had chosen for long hours of problem-solving, determination slowly displaced anxiety. Daniel had already arranged breakfast and a car to take her to the Royal Institution, well before the 8 o'clock start. When she entered the suite sitting room, he was reviewing notes while Grace babbled in her high chair. "Remember what I told you," he said as Alicia prepared to leave. "You belong there, trust your abilities. Whatever happens today, your future is secure." Grace reached toward her with delighted squeals, and Alicia held the baby close, drawing calm from the tiny heartbeat against her chest. "Wish me luck," she said. "You don't need luck," Daniel replied with a faint smile. "You have skill, preparation, and the rare ability to see problems from angles others never consider. That's far better than luck." The great lecture theater of the Royal Institution had been stripped of ornament, transformed into a quiet grid of long tables. Each competitor had a numbered seat. Alicia's was 87. The air smelled faintly of paper and tension. She sat exhaling slowly to steady her pulse. Around her, competitors performed their private rituals, stretching, murmured prayers, last-minute glances at notes. When Dr. Thompson appeared at the front, her mere presence commanded silence. The director reviewed the rules with the crisp precision of a proof. 4 hours, 12 problems arranged by difficulty, no calculators, no talking, no references, every step of reasoning must be shown. Elegant insight would outweigh brute calculation. "You have 4 hours, she concluded. "Begin." A hush fell so complete that the sound of 200 test booklets opening seemed like thunder. Alicia followed Mrs. Rodriguez's advice: survey first, solve second. She skimmed all 12 questions. The early ones were familiar terrain, number theory puzzles she could handle quickly. The middle set required creativity. The final 3 were formidable, demanding imagination more than memory. She began. Problem 1 yielded in 12 minutes, clean and precise. 2 took 15, 3 18. Exactly on schedule after 45 minutes. Problem 4, about prime number distributions, resisted until she glimpsed a modular arithmetic pattern that unlocked it elegantly. 22 minutes. Problem 5, geometric probability, needed careful diagrams and a clear head. 28 minutes. At the 2-hour mark she had completed 6 problems with confidence. Then came the true tests, the questions that separated competence from brilliance. Problem 7 asked for an algorithm to optimize resource distribution in a dynamic network. Alicia thought instantly of real places: East Austin's traffic snarls, the uneven spread of healthcare, the constant negotiation between efficiency and fairness. Instead of treating it as abstract mathematics, she built her solution around both. 40 minutes passed, but she had crafted something that felt original, not mechanical. Problem 8, involving wave propagation analysis, was outside her comfort zone. She pushed through methodically, documenting each uncertain step. 32 minutes later she had at least a defensible approach. 3 hours gone. Only 60 minutes left. Problem 9 offered welcome beauty,
a recursive sequence puzzle of the kind she loved most. Time vanished as patterns bloomed before her. In 28 minutes she produced a solution that sang with clarity. 32 minutes remained. She knew she could not finish all 3 remaining problems, so she planned strategically: tackle 10 and 11, leave sketches for 12, polish earlier answers if time allowed. Problem 10 dove into topology beyond her limits. She worked honestly, tracing the edges of what she understood, leaving clear reasoning even where she could not finish. 15 minutes gone. Problem 11 described the spread of an epidemic in crowded urban areas with limited healthcare. The words struck home. She thought of her own neighborhood, of people who worked sick because rent was due, of mothers waiting hours in emergency rooms. Her solution combined epidemiological modeling with the social constraints that shaped real outcomes: inequality, distrust, economic pressure. 10 minutes. She skimmed problem 12, jotted an outline, and spent her final 6 minutes checking calculations and clarifying steps. Time. Dr. Thompson called. Pencils down. Alicia obeyed, drained yet oddly exhilarated. 10 problems complete, an 11th half solved, a 12th only touched. Whether that was enough, she could not tell. Outside, London's cool air hit like a wave. Competitors spoke in hushed clusters, comparing strategies. Alicia overheard fragments, some purely theoretical, others algorithmic, few that mentioned the human dimensions she had woven into her work. James Wellington approached with an open, curious expression. "That epidemic problem was fascinating," he said. "I optimized for maximum containment efficiency." "How did you approach it?" "I modeled how disease actually spreads in poor communities," Alicia explained. "Limited healthcare, mistrust of institutions, economic pressure to keep working." James's eyes widened. "That's brilliant. I didn't even think of those factors. You solved a harder, truer version of the problem." "Maybe too complicated," she said. "The judges might not appreciate detours, or they'll see sophistication where others saw simplicity," James replied. "Real mathematics solves reality, not just theory." When Alicia returned to the suite, Daniel was ending a tense video conference. He turned immediately to her. "How did it go?" She sank into the sofa. "Exhausting but good. 10 solid answers, progress on 11, barely touched 12. I have no idea if that's enough." "Walk me through it," he said, giving her the full attention he usually reserved for boardrooms. She described each problem. He listened as if every equation mattered. When she reached the epidemic model, his expression shifted from curiosity to admiration. "You considered healthcare inequality and human behavior."
"Yes. The problem mentioned limited infrastructure. I assumed that meant addressing what that really means for families like mine." He nodded slowly. "That's exactly how we approach technology design, integrating human reality into theoretical optimization. Most people don't think that way." "Alicia, that's advanced thinking in any field. Do you think the judges will see it?" "The best ones will," Daniel said. "And even if they don't, that says more about their limitations than yours. What you did was innovative." Grace awoke then, happy and rested. Alicia played with her while Daniel stepped into another meeting. The baby's laughter a welcome counterpoint to equations still spinning in her head. The rhythm of feeding, bathing and singing felt grounding after the morning's intensity. Later, as Alicia helped dry Grace's hair and settle her into pajamas, she began to hum a melody from her childhood. The soft Spanish lullaby drifted through the suite. Grace's eyelids fluttered, her breathing slowed. Daniel watched from the doorway. "Your grandmother taught you that song?" Alicia nodded. She said it came from her own mother in Mexico, that every generation added its love to it. "When I sing it, I feel them all still with me." Daniel was moved more deeply than he expected. He had spent a lifetime equating success with acquisition, yet in that moment he understood that Alicia possessed something he could never buy: heritage, continuity, belonging. When Grace finally slept, he turned to Alicia. "Tomorrow's the last day, teamwork in the morning, individual presentations after lunch. How are you feeling?" "Confident," she said after a pause. "Today proved I belong here. My way of thinking may be different, but different isn't inferior. It's often what makes discovery possible." "That's the truth," Daniel agreed. "I've arranged childcare at the hotel so you can focus entirely tomorrow. You deserve to compete without distractions." "Thank you," Alicia said sincerely, "for everything, for believing in me. It means more than you know." "I think I do know," Daniel replied softly. "Someone once believed in me that way. It changed my life." Now I get to pass that on. Before bed, Alicia called her grandmother. The familiar face filled the small screen, warm and lined with pride. Misha, how was the first day? Hard, Alicia admitted, but good. I didn't finish everything, yet I think I solved the important parts well. Her grandmother smiled. That's all that matters. You remember what I always tell you, that results matter less than effort and character. Alicia recited automatically. Exactamente, the old woman said, her eyes shining. You've already won by reaching this stage and showing what our children can do when given a chance. Rankings are numbers. What you've done is proof. Tears stung Alicia's eyes. I love you, abuela. Thank you for believing when I couldn't. Yo te amo con todo mi corazón, Misha. Rest well. Tomorrow you conquer more mathematics. After the call, Alicia sat by the window watching the lights of London shimmer on wet streets. Somewhere below, cars whispered through the night, their red taillights curving like formulae through fog. She thought about the day, how every problem, even the ones she couldn't finish, had tested not only knowledge but resilience. She thought of the other competitors, many with tutors and private schools behind them, and realized she no longer felt intimidated. Her foundation had been harder built. Public libraries, late nights, relentless belief. For the first time, she felt free to compete not from desperation but from pride. She had already proven that brilliance wasn't confined to privilege, that compassion could open unexpected doors, that real talent only needed the right chance to bloom. As she finally lay down, exhaustion tugging her toward sleep, Alicia heard Grace's quiet breathing from the crib beside her, and felt peace settle through her like a solved equation. Tomorrow would bring collaboration, presentations and results, but tonight she already understood what success truly meant. The crying that had once filled the airplane was long gone, yet the story it began kept unfolding, spreading outward like concentric ripples from a single act of kindness, reaching farther than any of them had yet imagined. Morning broke softly over London, golden light seeping through hotel curtains and scattering across the quiet room. For once the city wasn't gray or rainy, it felt expectant, like it knew something important was about to happen. Alicia woke before her alarm, caught between calm and a pulse of nerves that thudded behind her ribs. Today would decide the competition rankings. She tried to remind herself that Daniel's steady reassurances were true, her future no longer depended on a number or medal, yet she wanted deeply to do well, not only for herself but for the family and neighborhood that had carried her here. She dressed in her best outfit, the same one she'd worn to the opening ceremony, and stepped into the suite's living area. Daniel was already awake, feeding Grace with one hand while scrolling through business notes with the other. Big day for both of us, he said with a smile that tried to sound casual. I have meetings that could determine our expansion into Europe. You've got a world championship to win. Alicia laughed softly. To compete in, she corrected. To win, he repeated. But whichever way you're ready. She accepted the breakfast he'd ordered, and sat beside Grace, who squealed happily at her presence. The morning's team collaboration, Alicia said, trying to sound composed. It's about solving one complex problem together. Then the individual presentations this afternoon decide the final rankings. Daniel nodded. Just remember, you've already proved everything that matters. Alicia kissed Grace's forehead and stood. Wish me luck. You don't need it, Daniel said. You've got preparation and purpose. That's better than luck. The competition building buzzed with nervous energy. Dr. Thompson stood at the podium and read from her tablet. Team 12, Alicia Martinez, United States, Kenji Nakamura, Japan, Greta Fischer, Germany, Minjun Park, South Korea. Alicia joined her team in a bright workspace surrounded by whiteboards. Greta, tall and self-assured, immediately stepped forward. Greta Fischer, mathematical physics, she said crisply. I've competed internationally for 3 years. Minjun nodded curtly. Computational mathematics, 3rd place last year, lost because of a careless error. Kenji, the quietest, offered a polite bow. Kenji Nakamura. Algebraic geometry. Alicia Martinez, she said simply. Number theory and combinatorics. Practical applications. Before they could exchange more, Dr. Thompson's voice came through the speakers. Your problem: design an algorithm to optimize traffic flow during emergency evacuations of a major city. Include mathematical proof, computational efficiency, and implementation that accounts for human behavior under stress. You have 90 minutes. Begin. Greta went straight to the whiteboard, her marker already squeaking across its surface. Graph theory, maximum flow paths through the network. We'll build the model first. Minjun didn't look up from his laptop. I'll code the simulation. We can test thousands of iterations for efficiency. Alicia studied the problem again. One line glowed in her mind: human behavior under extreme stress. We need to account for panic, she said suddenly. People don't act logically during evacuations. Greta frowned. That's not the focus. We're optimizing systems, not psychology. But if our system collapses when people panic, it's not optimal. Alicia insisted. Real people freeze, follow crowds, make emotional choices. The prompt asks for implementation that reflects reality. Minjun glanced up, skeptical. We're mathematicians, not behavioral scientists. Alicia met his gaze evenly. Mathematics that ignores behavior doesn't solve real problems. Kenji spoke up, hesitant but firm. She's right. In Japan, evacuation models that ignored panic failed. My father works in Tokyo's disaster planning office. People cluster, choose familiar routes, delay leaving. We've measured it. That shifted the air. Greta stopped writing. So the right approach is a hybrid model. Optimize efficiency within behavioral constraints. Yes. Alicia said, we treat psychology as boundary conditions. It's harder, but truer. From that moment, the team transformed. Greta's physics shaped population flow like moving fluids. Minjun's code simulated thousands of behavioral variations. Kenji provided real data from Tokyo studies. Alicia bridged it all, making sure the mathematics stayed tied to reality rather than abstraction. When the 90 minutes ended, their solution felt alive, elegant equations supported by human logic. Their presentation to the judges was fluid, each member contributing confidently. Afterward, Greta approached Alicia with surprising humility. I underestimated you, she said. You made our work better. Alicia smiled. We all did. That's what teamwork's supposed to be. Minjun nodded. You made theory human. That's rare. Kenji added quietly. A good team teaches each other. We did. Outside, sunlight slanted low over the Thames. The team disbanded for lunch, energy buzzing through them. The collaborative round was over. The real test, the individual challenge, waited. By afternoon, the competition building had gone silent, except for the scratch of pens and clicking keyboards. Dr. Thompson's voice filled every room. For your final individual presentation, develop a mathematical model to predict and prevent infectious disease spread in densely populated urban areas with limited healthcare. Account for inequality, cultural factors, and economic pressures. 2 hours to prepare, 15 minutes to present. Alicia's pulse jumped. This wasn't just a problem, it was her world. She saw her East Austin neighborhood instantly. Crowded apartments, families working through illness, long ER waits because clinics refused new patients. She took a deep breath, opened her notebook, and began. Her model combined epidemiology with lived experience. She adapted compartmental models to include unequal healthcare access. Network theory mapped social relationships, childcare swaps, church groups, shared rides that carried illness across invisible lines. Optimization algorithms distributed limited vaccines or medical staff, not ideally, but realistically, constrained by budgets and politics. Most radically, she built equations for trust and language barriers, assigning measurable proxy variables, survey data on medical confidence, vaccination uptake, English proficiency, and hospital utilization. The math became a mirror of human life, precise yet empathetic. When her 2 hours ended, her notes were dense with formulae and meaning. Late afternoon light filtered through high windows as Alicia entered the presentation room. 5 judges sat behind a long table. Dr. Thompson, Dr. Elizabeth Reed from Cambridge, and 3 others from Oxford, Singapore and Boston. Alicia began, steady despite her racing pulse. My model integrates epidemiological theory with quantifiable social variables. It aims to predict real transmission in communities where resources and trust are limited. She walked them through every layer. Disease compartments modified for inequality, network models shaped by family-based transmission, and optimization under scarcity. Dr. Reed leaned forward. Why include subjective factors like mistrust and informal care? Some might argue that weakens the mathematics. Alicia met her gaze, respectfully. It strengthens it. Modeling perfect systems is easy. Modeling the messy reality of poverty and fear, that's the real challenge. Pure theory fails if it collapses under human behavior. She pointed to a slide comparing standard models to her own. Traditional equations predicted uniform compliance with public health recommendations.
Mine accounts for economic pressure to keep working, language barriers that prevent understanding, and historical distrust after medical mistreatment. When we include those, predictions match real outcomes more closely. Dr. Walsh from Oxford interjected. But how can you quantify those cultural elements rigorously? With data, Alicia said firmly, surveys, behavioral studies, and health outcomes. We convert them into proxy variables validated through regression analysis and sensitivity testing. Another judge asked, have you compared your results to actual outbreaks? Yes, Alicia said, during a recent influenza wave in East Austin. My model predicted transmission patterns within 3% of recorded cases, far better than conventional models, which ignored economic constraints and language barriers. For 10 intense minutes, the judges pressed her on proof, computation, and ethics. Alicia answered calmly, conceding limitations but defending the philosophy: mathematics must serve people, not distance itself from them. When she finished, the silence felt electric. Dr. Reed's faint nod was the only hint of reaction. Alicia exhaled, trembling with exhaustion but proud. She had told the truth as she knew it. In the hallway, James Wellington caught up. That was extraordinary, he said. You solved the problem everyone else simplified. They asked for a model, you gave them a map of how the world really works. Alicia smiled weakly. Or maybe I overcomplicated it. You didn't, he said. You raised the standard. Back at the hotel, Daniel was pacing. When she entered, he looked up immediately. Well, I presented a model that includes healthcare inequality and cultural behavior. They asked hard questions. I held my ground, Alicia said, sinking onto the couch. Daniel's eyes softened. Alicia, even if you never hear your name on that stage tomorrow, you've already proven what matters. You showed that mathematics can serve humanity. That's bigger than any trophy. Grace, waking from a nap, reached for Alicia with open arms. Alicia gathered her close, the baby's small warmth easing her tension. Maybe you're right, she whispered. That evening, the organizers hosted a reception at a glass-walled gallery overlooking the city. The sky was painted with streaks of rose and blue, London shimmering below. Alicia hesitated at the entrance, but Daniel encouraged her to go. Inside, the atmosphere was lighter. Competitors mingled, laughter rising like music. To Alicia's surprise, several approached her first. Your epidemic model, everyone's talking about it, said a student from France. You turned social inequality into quantifiable mathematics. That's new. Before Alicia could respond, a calm, clear voice spoke behind her. Miss Martinez. She turned to find Dr. Elizabeth Reed smiling warmly. I wanted to congratulate you, Reed said. Your presentation was not only mathematically sound but visionary. You showed what applied mathematics should aspire to. Thank you, Alicia managed. Your research inspired much of my approach. Then you've advanced it, Reed replied. You've demonstrated that mathematical elegance and social understanding aren't opposites, they enhance one another. Too many brilliant minds forget that. They spoke for nearly an hour about modeling, ethics, and education. Alicia felt seen, truly understood, for the first time by someone from that distant world of academia. Finally, Dr. Reed asked, have you decided where you'll study next? I'll attend the Massachusetts Institute of Technology for my undergraduate degree, Alicia said. After that, I'd love to work on applied mathematics for public health. When the time comes for graduate studies, Reed said gently, I would be honored if you'd consider Cambridge. We need mathematicians like you, those who understand that equations are about lives as much as numbers. Alicia felt her throat tighten. That means everything to me. Then it's settled, Reed said with a small smile. Stay in touch, Alicia. The world will need your kind of mathematics. Later, back at the hotel, the suite was dark, except for the lamplight over Daniel's chair. Grace slept in her crib, peaceful and soft. How was it? Daniel asked, closing his book. Unreal, Alicia said, sinking into a chair. Dr. Reed wants me to study with her one day, at Cambridge. Daniel smiled, pride flickering across his face. Elizabeth Reed doesn't hand out invitations lightly. She must see what I saw that first day on the airplane. Alicia leaned back, overwhelmed. 3 days ago, I felt like an imposter. Now one of the world's top mathematicians thinks I can change the field. It's a lot. Daniel's voice was quiet. It's what you've earned. You're living proof that brilliance exists everywhere, not just in privilege. Alicia nodded slowly. Tomorrow they announce results. I know it shouldn't matter, but I still care. It's natural, Daniel said. You fought hard for this. But remember, the judges can only measure what fits on a score sheet. They can't measure courage, empathy, or vision. The night before, she stood by the window long after Daniel had gone to bed, watching the city lights shimmer across the Thames. Everything that had led her here, the crowded apartment, the public library, the flight where she'd soothed a stranger's baby, felt impossibly distant and yet vividly close. It struck her that her greatest victory had already happened. Not the medal waiting tomorrow, but the transformation that began the moment compassion bridged two separate worlds. The crying had stopped long ago. What remained was the echo of it, the call that had awakened something larger than either she or Daniel had ever intended. Alicia smiled faintly at her reflection in the glass. Tomorrow would bring whatever it brought, for now the city glowed around her, vast and alive, and she felt truly for the first time that she belonged in it. The morning of the results arrived with London wrapped in thick fog, as if the city itself were holding its breath. Alicia woke early, her stomach tight with nerves despite every reassurance that her future was secure no matter the rankings. She dressed carefully and found Daniel already awake, feeding Grace and checking his phone, clearly as anxious as she was. "Ready for today?" he asked with a smile. "As ready as I will ever be," Alicia said, pouring coffee with trembling hands. "I keep reminding myself that rankings do not define my worth, but I still want to do well. Not just for me, for my family, my community, everyone who believed in me." Daniel nodded. "That is admirable. Just do not let the pressure crush you. You have already shown what is possible when talent meets opportunity." Grace reached for Alicia, laughing softly. Alicia lifted her into her arms, comforted by the small warmth of the child she had helped calm so many times. She realized she would miss her when they returned to Texas. The closing ceremony took place in the same grand auditorium where the competition had begun. The air was charged with tension. For many, today's results would shape entire futures. Alicia spotted familiar faces, James Wellington a few rows ahead giving her a thumbs up, and Kenji, Greta, and Minjin nodding respectfully, so different from the guarded looks they had given her on the first day. Dr. Thompson stepped onto the stage. "This has been one of the most competitive championships in 47 years, she said. "Before we reveal the placements, I want you to remember that simply being here places you among the top 0.1% of young mathematicians in the world. These rankings reflect performance on certain problems under certain conditions. They do not define the whole of your talent or potential." She paused to let that sink in. At this level, margins are razor thin. A single insight or a change in team dynamics can shift results. Accept today's outcome with pride and perspective. Then she began to read the names from 20th place upward. Each competitor received applause, but Alicia could barely hear over the pounding of her own heart. 15th place, 12th, 10th. Still no, Alicia Martinez. 8th went to a contestant from China. 7th to one from India. 6th to the girl from New York who had looked down on Alicia's public school background. 5th place, Singapore. 4th, Greta Fischer, Germany. Greta smiled bravely, though Alicia saw the disappointment in her eyes. 3rd place, Minjin Park, South Korea. 2nd place, Kenji Nakamura, Japan. The hall grew utterly still. Only one name remained. "And the winner of this year's International Mathematics Competition," said Dr. Thompson, her voice lifting, representing the United States, "Alicia Martinez from Austin, Texas." For a heartbeat, Alicia did not move. Then sound crashed over her, the roar of applause, cheers rising like a wave. Daniel stood with tears streaming down his face, holding Grace who clapped her tiny hands as if she understood. Alicia walked to the stage as if floating. She had done it. Against 60 nations' brightest she had won. Dr. Thompson handed her a crystal trophy that caught the light like fire, and a certificate guaranteeing a full scholarship to the Massachusetts Institute of Technology, including tuition, housing, books and research funding. "Your work was extraordinary," Thompson said. "You showed us how mathematics can serve humanity. You did not simply solve problems, you connected theory to life. Your winning solution for the disease prevention challenge combined epidemiological modeling, network theory, and optimization algorithms, all anchored in the realities of resource-poor communities. That perspective made it revolutionary. She turned to the audience. This is the future of applied mathematics, brilliant minds using their gifts to address the problems that matter most. Alicia has proven that intellectual rigor and social conscience are not opposites, they strengthen each other. Applause swelled again. Alicia stood on the stage, tears in her eyes, seeing the faces below, her peers, her mentors, her supporters, and felt the full weight of the journey behind her. From a small apartment in East Austin to this world stage. From caring for her baby sister Rosa to calming Grace on that flight. From public libraries and borrowed books to defeating the most privileged young minds in the world. But more than pride, she felt responsibility. This victory belonged to Minnie, her mother, who worked double shifts at the hospital, her grandmother, who had given everything for their family, Mrs. Rodriguez, who had recognized her brilliance when others saw only a poor girl, every neighbor who had donated a few dollars for her ticket. She held the trophy for all of them, for every child told that success was for someone else. After the ceremony, professors and judges crowded around to congratulate her. For the first time, the ideas she had shaped from hardship were seen as innovation, not eccentricity. Dr. Reed embraced her warmly. I am so proud of you, Alicia. You have shown the world why mathematics needs voices like yours. My invitation to Cambridge stands stronger than ever. You are going to transform this field. James Wellington shook her hand. You reminded us that true sophistication comes from grappling with real complexity. Congratulations, champion. Kenji, Greta and Minjin approached together. You proved that intelligence joined with empathy creates the most powerful results, Greta said. We are honored to have worked beside you. When Alicia finally reached Daniel, emotion overcame her. I won, she whispered. He hugged her tightly. You did more than win. You changed the story of where brilliance lives. Grace reached for Alicia again, babbling with delight. Alicia held her, grounding herself in that small human connection. That evening Daniel arranged a private dinner. Jennifer joined by video call, radiant with pride. Congratulations, Alicia, she said. Daniel has told me everything. I cannot wait to meet you in person. Over dessert, Daniel leaned forward. There is something important I would like to discuss with you and with your family. Alicia looked surprised but curious. Of course, I have been thinking about what your victory means, he said. Your neighbors raised money so you could come here. They believed in you before anyone else. You are not an exception. You are proof of what happens when potential meets opportunity. Jennifer nodded. Daniel believes the best way to honor your success is not just to support you, but to help others like you. What do you mean? Alicia asked carefully. I want to visit your neighborhood, Daniel said. Not as a philanthropist dropping in, but to learn to meet the families who supported you, the teachers who shaped you, to understand both the challenges and the strengths of the community that produced you. I think the smartest thing I can do with my resources is not fund one scholarship, but build opportunities where talent already exists. Alicia stared at him, speechless. You want to help my entire community? I want to understand it first, he said. If we can learn what works, maybe we can create lasting change, education, job training, small business support. But it starts with listening. Her eyes filled with tears. That is more than I ever imagined anyone would offer. Daniel smiled. It is not charity, it is partnership. The next morning, before their flight home, they called Alicia's family from the hotel conference room. Her mother, grandmother, and siblings crowded around a small phone in their apartment kitchen. Misha, we are so proud of you. Her mother cried. You showed the whole world what we always knew. Her grandmother's voice trembled with joy. You honored our family, my child. You carried us with you. Daniel spoke gently. Mrs. Martinez, Mrs. Lopez, thank you for raising such an extraordinary young woman. Alicia's brilliance and compassion both come from you. Mrs. Martinez smiled gratefully but guardedly. You have already done so much for her, Mr. Holloway. We are thankful for everything. I want to do more, Daniel said. When we return to Austin, I would like to visit your neighborhood. Not to observe from a distance, but to understand, to meet the people who believed in Alicia, see the schools, the church, the small businesses. I want to learn what resources could truly help the community thrive. Mrs. Martinez hesitated. Our neighborhood is modest, many people struggle. I am not sure what you would gain from seeing it. I believe Alicia's story shows that talent is everywhere, Daniel said. She is not an anomaly, she is evidence of what happens when support meets determination. I want to explore how to create more chances like that. There was a pause, then Alicia's grandmother spoke, her voice steady. You are welcome to come, Mr. Holloway. We will show you our neighborhood and the people who helped send her to London. But I must ask, do you wish to feel good about helping the poor, or do you truly wish to create change? Daniel met her gaze through the screen. I want real change, but I know it begins with listening. I do not presume to know what your community needs. I hope to learn and to work together, if you will allow it. Mrs. Lopez nodded slowly. Then you are welcome, come see where she comes from. Meet the people who gave what they did not have so that she could rise. If you truly listen, perhaps together we can build something lasting. Daniel bowed his head slightly. That is exactly what I hope for. When the call ended, Alicia turned to him, still moved. You mean it, do not you? You are really going to come? I meant every word, he said. You changed how I see the world, now it is my turn to act on it. Later, as their plane rose through the gray London sky, Alicia looked out at the clouds, the trophy on her lap, Grace asleep beside her, and Daniel reviewing notes about East Austin. For the first time, she felt that the future was something she could shape, not merely reach. Somewhere above the Atlantic, as sunlight pierced the fog, she realized that winning the championship was not the ending. It was the beginning.
Daniel and Jennifer returned to Austin 2 days later, their SUV winding through East Austin's narrow streets. It was late Saturday morning, families outside corner stores, kids racing bikes, music spilling from open windows. Jennifer looked out the window. I've lived in Texas all my life, but I've never actually seen this part of Austin up close. Most wealthy people haven't, Daniel said. We live in separate worlds that barely overlap. The neighborhood showed its age, peeling paint, patched roofs, but also pride, tidy gardens, swept porches, murals brightening worn walls. Signs were in Spanish and English, a playground buzzed with laughter. It's more alive than I imagined, Jennifer murmured. People here clearly care. They reached Alicia's apartment complex, a modest 2-story building freshly adorned with banners, "Welcome home, champion Alicia." Alicia stepped outside with her family, neighbors gathering behind them. Her mother greeted the Holloways with a mixture of pride and nerves. "Thank you for having us," Jennifer said warmly. "We're honored." Inside the apartment was tiny but spotless, family photos, children's drawings, an altar with candles and a corner desk stacked with math books. "She studies here?" Jennifer asked. "Yes," Mrs. Martinez said proudly. "When it's too noisy she goes to the library." Daniel studied the cramped workspace, one small lamp, a worn chair, and felt humbled. "She's done more with this little desk," he said quietly, "than most students with every advantage." Outside, neighbors had gathered: Mr. Garcia from the grocery, Mrs. Rodriguez the teacher, the pastor, friends who'd contributed what little they could to send Alicia to London. The Holloways spent hours listening, stories of long hours, low wages, schools with outdated books, families sharing food to survive. Yet what struck Jennifer wasn't the poverty but the solidarity. "This is a real community," she said softly. "They have less but they have each other." Lunch was simple: tamales, rice, beans, but the hospitality was rich. Rosa, 7, perched in Alicia's lap. "My sister's going to be a famous mathematician," she declared. "I believe it," Daniel said, smiling. "And I think you're going to be something amazing too." "I'm good at stories," Rosa said. "Mrs. Rodriguez says I have a gift with words." After lunch, Mrs. Rodriguez offered to show them the schools. The elementary building dated from the 1970s, crowded and crumbling. "Rosa will start here," Mrs. Rodriguez said. "She's gifted, but we don't have gifted programs anymore. One teacher, 35 students. It's hard to nurture talent in these conditions." The middle school was newer but barren of resources: outdated computers, no art or music programs, broken lab equipment. The high school where Alicia had studied was worse: shared calculators, missing textbooks, too few teachers for advanced courses. "This is where she taught herself enough math to win internationally," Mrs. Rodriguez said, "not because of what we had, but in spite of what we lacked." Daniel and Jennifer drove through more streets, seeing the strain but also the spark: murals, youth tutoring younger kids, small shops scraping by on determination. "I see what you meant," Jennifer said. "Talent's everywhere, opportunity isn't." Daniel's jaw tightened, and then people like Patterson wonder why these kids don't succeed. They start miles behind and still have to prove they belong. When they returned to Alicia's complex, the courtyard had transformed into a potluck feast, dozens of neighbors bringing what they could. The Holloways sat among them, paper plates balanced on their knees, listening more than speaking. Finally Daniel stood. "Thank you for welcoming us. I came here to understand where Alicia's brilliance came from. Now I know it came from this community. You raised her with love and belief when the system didn't." He paused. "Alicia is exceptional, but she's not unique. There are dozens of children like her here, talented in math, science, writing, business, whose potential is buried under lack of opportunity. I want to help change that, but not as a savior, as a partner." Mrs. Rodriguez rose. "We've heard promises before. People visit, take pictures, then disappear. Why should we believe you?" Daniel nodded. "You shouldn't yet, but I'm not here for charity or headlines. I grew up poor. I know what untapped potential looks like. Alicia reminded me what I'd forgotten, that talent is universal, but opportunity isn't. I want to help fix that imbalance with you." He outlined his vision: a vocational training center offering free certification for high-wage jobs, tech, healthcare, manufacturing, skilled trades, with guaranteed interviews from partner companies. Education investment, either improving current schools with private funding or creating a neighborhood academy offering elite-level resources regardless of income. Small business development, grants, mentorship, and capital access for local entrepreneurs. Family support services, childcare, healthcare navigation, financial counseling, and job placement. The courtyard was quiet. The scope sounded impossible. Then Alicia's grandmother, Mrs. Lopez, spoke. "That sounds beautiful, and expensive. Why us? What do you gain?" Daniel met her gaze. "Practically, I gain talented workers, stronger communities, and a better city. Personally, I gain meaning. Alicia helped my daughter and changed my life. This is how I honor that gift. But more than anything, it's right. Wealth should expand opportunity, not hoard it." He looked around. "I can't fix inequality, but I can open doors that stay open. That's what I intend to do." Mrs. Rodriguez spoke again, her tone softened but firm. "If you're serious, we must lead the process. No top-down design, real partnership." "Agreed," Daniel said. "You bring insight. I'll bring resources. Decisions will be made together." The talk deepened, neighbors sharing ideas, needs, fears, hopes. Mrs. Rodriguez outlined job markets demanding skilled workers. Pastor Martinez described families struggling to afford childcare. Mr. Garcia explained how small loans could keep local stores alive. Parents spoke about after-school safety and college dreams. Daniel and Jennifer listened intently, taking notes. For once the conversation between wealth and poverty wasn't filtered through pity or distance, it was honest and human. As the sun set, people drifted home with a mix of excitement and guarded optimism. Alicia walked the Holloways to their car. "Thank you for seeing us," she said quietly. "Not just our struggles, but our strength." "Thank you for reminding me what matters," Daniel said. "I'd forgotten what it feels like to see possibility instead of problems." Jennifer hugged her. "You've changed our family, Alicia. You showed us that potential is everywhere if we choose to see it. We're committed to doing this right, with your community." As they pulled away, the courtyard lights glowed behind them, and neighbors lingered laughing over the last of the food. Jennifer broke the silence. "We have to follow through. No press releases, no charity branding, just real, sustained commitment." Daniel nodded. "We will. This will take years and real money, but if we do it right, it'll outlast us." He looked once more in the mirror, the banners fluttering, the community that had raised a prodigy on love instead of privilege, and felt something shift deep within him. For the first time in years, Daniel Holloway wasn't thinking about quarterly profits or market expansions. He was thinking about possibility, about what might happen if the walls between privilege and potential finally came down. And he knew then, with absolute clarity, that his life's work had just begun. Over the months that followed, Daniel proved his promises weren't cosmetic. He kept coming back to East Austin, sometimes with Jennifer, sometimes alone, showing up to listen more than to speak. He brought in development experts who worked with residents rather than around them, then convened an advisory board with real authority led by Mrs. Rodriguez, Pastor Martinez, and other trusted voices. When the church hall filled to capacity for a community meeting, the plans they'd shaped together finally took public form. "We've spent this time learning your needs and strengths," Daniel said from the dais. "We're launching programs designed with you for you, built to last." First came the East Austin Vocational Training Center, free training in high-demand fields, technology, advanced manufacturing, healthcare specialties, skilled trades, digital skills, paired with employer partnerships that guaranteed interviews for graduates. "We're training for real jobs," he said. "Our target is 3/4 placed within 3 months." Next, Rodriguez Academy, named for Mrs. Rodriguez, who sat stunned as applause rose. The school would welcome neighborhood children, regardless of ability to pay. Tuition would slide where needed, free where necessary. Teacher salaries would match elite schools, classes would be small, the curriculum advanced, arts and athletics fully funded, and support services wrapped around students' full needs. "This isn't a school for the already recognized gifted," Daniel added. "It's excellent education for all." A small business development fund followed, grants, low-interest loans, and mentorship with local owners like Mr. Garcia, helping guide new entrepreneurs. Then comprehensive family supports, affordable childcare, help with healthcare navigation, financial counseling, job placement, the invisible scaffolding that lets families breathe. "These aren't one-off gestures," Daniel concluded. "They come with legal commitments and dedicated funding. We start now." The room erupted. Tears, cheers, the stunned relief of a community long trained to expect less. Alicia, home from her first term at MIT, stood beside Mrs. Rodriguez and watched the tide shift. "This is because of you, Misha," the older woman said, voice trembling. "It's because of us," Alicia answered. "People believed in me when it cost them to do it. Now that belief is multiplying." Work crews arrived, then framing, glass and bright lab benches. The training center rose with classrooms wired for industry-standard tools, technology labs, healthcare simulation rooms, equipment for hands-on manufacturing. When it opened, the neighborhood greeted it like a university arriving at their doorstep. Parents hungry for better work, young adults hungry for stability, displaced workers hungry for dignity, they filled the rosters. Maria Gonzalez, after 15 years cleaning houses, enrolled in medical coding. "I'm smart enough for more than a mop," she said. "I just never had a path." James Wilson, laid off when a factory moved out of state, signed up for advanced manufacturing. "They're teaching robotics, CNC, quality systems," he said. "Those jobs exist. They pay enough to change what my kids think is possible." Rodriguez Academy opened its gates soon after, a sunlit building that could have stood in the wealthiest zip code in the city. 300 children arrived to classrooms, capped at 18, shelves of new books, an art room with supplies that did not have to be rationed, a library that invited lingering, music that belonged to them. Rosa Martinez, small backpack and big eyes, stepped into first grade and found a teacher who had time. "My school is beautiful," she told Alicia over video. "My teacher says I'm good at writing and is starting a special project with me." "You deserve it," Alicia said, eyes bright. "Every child does." Teachers came because the mission matched their calling, and because the salaries respected it. Mr. Carter left a gilded private school to teach here. "In my old job," he said, "I taught students whose paths were already paved. Here, every concept mastered lays new road." Certificates and diplomas began to stack in hands that had never held them. Of the training center's earliest completers, most had offers within weeks. Wages jumped from survival to stability. Maria put on a badge that read medical coder and watched her children watch her. James pulled on steel-toed boots and a supervisor's vest and brought home a paycheck that made rent a settled question. The changes refused to stay confined to buildings. Debate students from Rodriguez Academy knocked off private school favorites. The robotics team advanced deep into state competition. The choir's harmonies made lawmakers pause in the rotunda. The soccer team lifted trophies twice over. Scores climbed past percentiles that used to belong to other neighborhoods. More importantly, belief shifted, teachers' expectations, parents' horizons, the way students said when they go to college instead of if. The business fund moved quietly and powerfully. Mr. Garcia turned his corner store into a bright neighborhood market with fresh produce and a small cafe that became a daily gathering. Carlos Mendez hired vocational center graduates and took on repair jobs that kept homes safe and dignified.
Jasmine Washington opened a tutoring and test prep service, staffed by Rodriguez alumni, pricing it so families like hers could afford it. Each enterprise added jobs, confidence and light behind long dark windows. Family support workers went where clipboards rarely do, kitchen tables, hospital waiting rooms, housing offices, untangling the snarls that turn small setbacks into crises. Health coverage got secured, budgets balanced, apartment leases kept, new work started. The emergencies didn't vanish, but they stopped cascading. In the courtyard of Alicia's apartment complex, renovated rather than replaced, the academy's first 8th grade promotion filled the air with brass laughter and the sound of names read with pride. These students would be the first Rodriguez high schoolers, the class that would stretch the runway instead of stopping at middle school. "Look what we've built together," Jennifer said, tears softening her voice. Daniel watched Rosa step to a microphone and read a piece about migration and love and grit, and he nodded. "I thought I was helping one exceptional girl," he said. "Turns out the exception was the opportunity, not the talent." Mrs. Rodriguez, now principal of the school that bears her name, threaded through families to reach them. "I've taught thousands," she said, eyes wet. "I never thought I'd see a place where every child is seen this way. The first seniors I'll send to college, many with major scholarships. In this neighborhood, that's as astonishing as any miracle I've prayed for." Daniel hugged her. "You saw it first," he said. "We only built around what you've always known." Alicia stood with her family and took in the scene. Her mother worked one job now, not two. Her abuela laughed with friends and saved her strength for joy. Her brothers devoured math and science with the same appetite. Alicia once had Rosa wrote like the world depended on it. "Are you happy up there?" her mother asked about MIT. "I am," Alicia said. "Sometimes I feel out of place among students who never have to think about money, but I'm learning what I need to build what comes next, and I don't carry it alone anymore. Look around, so many are coming up behind me." That evening, a long table at a modestly elegant Austin restaurant became a kind of family, blood and chosen. Alicia and her mother and abuela, Mrs. Rodriguez, Pastor Martinez, Mr. Garcia and Jasmine and Carlos, the Holloways. Glasses rose. "I boarded a plane with a crying baby," Daniel began, not as a confession anymore, but as origin story. "A 16-year-old from East Austin walked forward and showed me I was looking at need and missing capacity. She helped my daughter when I couldn't. Everything since has been learning to act on that lesson." He turned to Alicia. "You opened my eyes to a city I lived in but didn't really see. You taught me that success without purpose is a kind of failure, and that the highest return comes from investing in people." Around the table he continued, "The training center helped hundreds move into careers that changed their families' math. The academy is graduating students who will become doctors and engineers and teachers and artists, not in spite of where they're from, but in full conversation with it. The fund seeded businesses that create jobs and dignity. The supports kept families intact long enough to benefit from opportunity. This is not charity, this is intelligent investment in human potential." Jennifer stood with him. "I grew up buffered from all of this," she said. "I held the lazy belief that poverty meant lack of effort. Being welcomed into East Austin stripped that away. Talent is everywhere, resources are not." She faced Alicia's mother and grandmother. "You raised a daughter whose brilliance was matched by her steadiness and grace. That didn't come from money, it came from you, from expectation and love." Mrs. Rodriguez rested her hands on the table, fingers still ink-stained from the day's work. "What makes it work is partnership," she said. "Resources came with humility, community knowledge led, programs were built with families, not for them. That's why they fit, that's why they last. Others can copy this, if they're willing to do the slow work of respect." Daniel nodded once. "Then we show them," he said. He glanced at Alicia, now a scholar and builder in her own right, the same calm in her eyes he'd first recognized on an airplane. The story had outgrown its beginning, but the beginning still mattered. A baby's cry, a teenager's competence, the shock of realizing genius had been sitting in economy class all along. Outside, the city glowed. In East Austin, lab lights and classroom lamps burned late, casting steady squares of gold onto sidewalks where parents walked home from shifts and students rehearsed arguments or chorales or code. The neighborhood did not feel fixed, it felt in motion, wave after wave gathering behind ripples that refused to dissipate. What started as help became partnership. Partnership became structure. Structure became culture. And culture shared, defended, renewed, became a future large enough for everyone at the table and everyone beyond it. 7 years after that fateful airplane encounter, the transformation had exceeded anything they'd imagined. Alicia Martinez had graduated from MIT with highest honors, published 3 influential papers applying mathematical modeling to public health and education, and was now beginning graduate studies at Cambridge under Dr. Elizabeth Chen, just as planned. But she wasn't the only success story anymore. Rodriguez Academy's first senior class had just graduated, 83 students who'd been with the school since childhood. All 83 finished. 71 were headed to 4-year universities, 8 to community colleges, and 4 into skilled trades. 95% were pursuing higher education or training. They were bound for UT Austin, Rice, Stanford, Harvard, Howard, MIT, studying everything from engineering to medicine to the arts. The full spectrum of human talent, finally given room to grow. Among them was Rosa Martinez, Alicia's younger sister, now a full scholarship student at UT Austin majoring in journalism. She had already published essays on immigration, inequality, and her sister's improbable journey. "I'm going to tell stories about communities like ours," Rosa told Alicia on a call. "Stories with nuance, not pity, about families who work hard, kids with talent, and what happens when someone finally believes in them." Daniel and Jennifer Holloway's sons were thriving too. Daniel Jr., Rodriguez Academy's top math student, was clearly following in Alicia's footsteps. David was passionate about environmental science, already researching air quality and public health in low-income neighborhoods. The Vocational Training Center had served over 3,000 adults, maintaining a 75–80% job placement rate. Graduates averaged $52,000 a year, solidly middle-class income that brought stability to families once living paycheck to paycheck. Families like Maria Gonzalez's, once a house cleaner, she'd completed the medical coding program and now earned $68,000 a year. Her 3 children attended Rodriguez Academy. Her eldest was starting at Texas State. "That training center gave me more than job skills," Maria said. "It gave me the ability to build a future." Former factory worker James Wilson had retrained in advanced manufacturing, risen to supervisor, and was earning $92,000. He'd bought a home, saved for college, and planned to start his own business with a community development loan. The Small Business Fund had supported 130 neighborhood entrepreneurs, creating roughly 450 jobs. The neighborhood itself was thriving: new stores, modestly rising property values, declining crime. Mr. Garcia's grocery had become a full supermarket employing 12 people. Carlos Mendez's construction firm now had 20 employees, mostly vocational graduates. Jasmine Washington's tutoring center had grown to 3 sites, employing 45 tutors, many academy graduates, and serving 800 students annually. Rodriguez Academy had become a national model for holistic education in low-income areas. Educators visited from across the country. Cities from Dallas to Phoenix had replicated the approach, thanks to Daniel's partnerships with other philanthropists and companies. At a national education conference, Alicia took the stage to deliver her keynote address. 7 years ago, I helped calm a crying baby on an airplane, she began. That act of compassion led to a partnership that changed not only my life, but my entire community. She gestured to a slide of smiling academy students. These children show what happens when we treat educational inequality as solvable. They come from families earning poverty-level wages, yet they're earning scholarships to top universities. Talent was never the issue, access was. The next slide showed vocational graduates. These adults show what happens when we build real pathways to middle-class careers instead of survival jobs. They were cleaners, factory workers, caregivers. Now they're medical coders, manufacturing technicians, nurses, skilled tradespeople, earning steady incomes and strengthening local economies. Her voice grew stronger. The East Austin model proves 3 things. 1. Talent is universal. Opportunity is not. 2. Comprehensive investment works: education, job training, business support, and family services together. 3. Genuine partnership with communities, not imposed solutions, creates lasting change. She paused, then concluded, I'm not special, I'm just what's possible when talent meets opportunity. There are millions like me across America, brilliant, determined, overlooked. The question is whether we have the will to invest in them. The East Austin model shows it can be done. Now it's your turn to make it happen. That evening, Alicia video called Daniel and Jennifer from Cambridge. Grace, now 7, popped onto the screen, excited. Alicia, Mommy and Daddy showed me your speech. You were amazing. I want to help people too. Alicia smiled. You will, Grace. You're growing up seeing your parents use their advantages to lift others. That's real success. When Grace left to do homework, Daniel's tone grew serious. Your keynote was extraordinary, he said. You express why this work matters better than I ever could. You've got a gift for math, but also for leadership. Alicia smiled softly. I learned from you. Real change takes more than good intentions. It takes commitment, resources, and partnership. Daniel hesitated, visibly moved. I used to think I was the one with power, the one helping you. But you've taught me far more than I've taught you. You showed me that wealth without purpose is empty, that success means using privilege to expand opportunity. You made me see that compassion is a form of intelligence. Jennifer added quietly, you've taught me too. I grew up with privilege I never questioned. I assumed people who lacked it, lacked ambition. You shattered that illusion. You showed me inequality is built by systems, not by effort. Alicia's eyes glistened. You both changed my life by seeing potential where others didn't. When I helped Grace, I didn't know it would lead to this. But you saw me, you invested in me, you brought resources, I brought knowledge of my community. Together we built something bigger than either of us. She looked thoughtful. That's the lesson I want people to understand. The East Austin story isn't about a wealthy savior rescuing the poor, it's about partnership built on mutual respect. That's what creates real lasting change. Daniel nodded, emotion thick in his voice. You're right, it started with one act of compassion, but what it's become proves that change isn't charity, it's collaboration. Alicia smiled, remembering the crying baby who'd started it all, the sound that had once filled a plane and now echoed as a legacy of transformation. The crying had stopped years ago, but what it began, a partnership across divides, a model of shared investment and universal potential, was still growing, still spreading, still proving that when compassion meets opportunity, the results can change the world.
Join us to share meaningful stories by hitting the like and subscribe buttons. Don't forget to turn on the notification bell to start your day with profound lessons and heartfelt empathy.